As winter approached, life began to present new tests that neither of them could ignore. They had grown close and shared a strong bond. But the world outside their little bubble still had pressures and surprises that challenged even the strongest connections. She was offered a new job opportunity in a distant city, one that could significantly advance her career, but would take her away from the life she had built around the bookstore and him. The offer excited her and terrified her at the same time. She wanted to grow. She feared losing the quiet stability and the love she had found. He learned about the opportunity with mixed emotions. Pride filled him because he knew it was a chance she deserved, but a deep worry settled in his chest. The thought of being separated by distance, of missing her presence in his life, felt almost unbearable. Yet he knew he had to support her decision. He reminded himself that love was not about possession, but about encouragement. About wishing for the best for someone, even when it meant personal sacrifice. They spent hours discussing the opportunity, weighing the pros and cons, and sharing their fears openly. Their conversations were honest and tender, filled with vulnerability and care. She admitted her anxiety about leaving, fearing that the distance might weaken their bond. He confessed his own fears, worrying that the physical separation would test their patience and trust. Despite the uncertainties, they both agreed that their love was worth fighting for. And they decided to face the challenge together. The days leading up to her move were filled with quiet, moments of intimacy and reflection. They walked through familiar streets, visited favorite cafes, and spent long hours in the bookstore, savoring the time they had left. Each moment was tinged with a bittersweet feeling, a combination of joy and sadness. He would watch her closely, memorizing little details, the way her hair fell over her shoulders, the curve of her smile, the way her eyes lit up when she laughed. She, in turn, noticed the gentleness in his gestures, the quiet way he cared, and the unwavering attention he gave her. As the day of her departure approached, they both felt the weight of unspoken emotions. Words felt inadequate to express the depth of what they shared. They tried to capture their feelings in letters, small gifts, and meaningful gestures. He left notes in her suitcase, tucked into pockets, or between pages of books she planned to bring. She wrote letters he could open whenever he felt lonely or unsure. These tokens became lifelines, reminders of the connection they could not see but always felt. The morning of her departure was quiet and heavy. The streets were blanketed in frost, and a pale winter sun reflected off the windows. They walked together to the station, hands intertwined, neither wanting to let go. When the time came to part, they embraced, holding each other tightly as if to transfer strength and reassurance through the touch alone. She whispered, "No matter where I go, I will carry you with me," and he replied, "And I will be here, waiting, believing in us." Tears blurred their vision, but they held on a moment longer, imprinting the memory of each other deeply in their hearts. The first days of separation were difficult. Distance introduced a subtle strain, a longing that neither could fully satisfy. They spoke often on the phone, shared messages, and sent small surprises to each other, but the absence of physical presence was keenly felt. Each faced moments of doubt and worry. She wondered if the distance would make their bond weaker, and he questioned whether his support was enough to keep her close in spirit. Yet each time they connected, whether through a call, a text, or a letter, their commitment and love became more evident. Reinforcing the strength of their bond, she navigated the challenges of her new job with determination, often thinking about how he had prepared her to face difficulties with courage and patience. His quiet support, even from afar, reminded her that she was not alone. He, meanwhile, poured himself into managing the bookstore, maintaining routines that reminded him of her, keeping the memories of their shared moments alive. Both found comfort in knowing that despite the physical separation, their emotional connection remained strong. During this period, they learned to communicate more deeply and meaningfully. Words became carefully chosen, filled with emotion and thoughtfulness. Every conversation, message, call became an opportunity to reinforce their commitment and to express the love they felt but could not always show physically. The challenges of distance revealed the strength of their trust, patience, and emotional resilience. They discovered that love could endure uncertainty when nurtured with sincerity and care. Despite the difficulties, they also created new ways to share experiences. She would describe her surroundings, the people she met, and the challenges she faced, painting vivid pictures with words. He would respond with his own reflections, imagining the details she described, offering advice or comfort when needed. Occasionally, he sent small surprises, books she might enjoy, or reminders of their shared memories. Each gesture, though small, carried immense significance, a reaffirmation of their connection. There were moments of doubt and loneliness, moments when the longing for physical presence became almost overwhelming. Yet, they faced these feelings together, speaking openly about fears and uncertainties. These conversations, sometimes emotional and intense, became opportunities for growth. They learned to listen deeply, to offer reassurance without judgment, and to find joy even in the absence of immediate physical closeness. Their love began to mature, no longer reliant solely on presence, but strengthened by understanding, empathy, and trust. Over time, they began to plan visits, small reunions that would bring them together despite the challenges. Each visit became a cherished event, filled with excitement, tenderness, and shared joy. They explored new places together, revisited favorite spots, created new memories that added layers to their growing story. Each reunion reaffirmed their commitment and reminded them of the love that had brought them together in the first place. One particularly memorable reunion occurred on a crisp winter evening. They met at a small train station, the air filled with the scent of winter and the soft glow of lamps. When they saw each other, they ran into each other's arms, holding on as if never wanting to let go. They walked through the quiet streets, talking, laughing, and simply enjoying the presence of one another. Every glance, every touch, every word seemed amplified by the time they had spent apart. The distance had not weakened their bond. It had made it more precious. Their love continued to deepen through these trials. They learned the importance of compromise, patience, and understanding. They discovered new facets of each other's personalities, strengths, and vulnerabilities. Every challenge they faced together, whether through distance, personal struggles, or external pressures, reinforced the truth that their connection was resilient, meaningful, and enduring, even in the face of uncertainty. They nurtured their dreams together. She pursued her career with vigor, inspired by the support and belief he provided, while he continued to care for the bookstore with dedication. Motivated by the hope and love she instilled in him, their lives, though temporarily separated, remained intertwined in purpose and emotion. They celebrated achievements, comforted disappointments, and shared aspirations, keeping the flame of their relationship alive through commitment and affection. As the season progressed, they became more confident in navigating the complexities of life and love. They understood that challenges were not obstacles to their connection, but opportunities to strengthen it. Each difficulty they faced together taught them resilience, patience, and the profound depth of mutual care. Their bond was no longer fragile or tentative. It had grown into a steady, enduring presence in each other's lives. They also began to envision a shared future, discussing hopes, dreams, and plans that went beyond immediate circumstances. They spoke about the possibility of living in the same city again, of creating a home together, and of supporting each other's ambitions without losing the essence of their connection. These conversations, filled with both excitement and careful planning, strengthened their emotional intimacy and reaffirmed their commitment. Through it all, they learned that love was not about avoiding difficulties, but about facing them together. The physical distance, career pressures, and daily challenges became opportunities to reinforce trust, communication, and emotional depth. They discovered that true love was patient, resilient, and unwavering, capable of growing even when circumstances seemed challenging. By the end of this chapter in their story, they had faced one of their most significant tests yet. Despite distance and uncertainty, their bond had endured and even deepened. They had learned to communicate openly, support each other emotionally, and find joy in small moments of connection. Their love had matured, evolving from initial attraction and affection into a profound partnership built on trust, understanding, and unwavering care. And as they looked toward the future, they did so with hope, determination, and the certainty that their love could withstand any challenge that life placed before them. She walked through the crowded streets, her mind busy with the tasks of the day. The sunlight fell gently on her face, and she felt a small smile appear on her lips, despite the tiredness that weighed on her shoulders. Her life had always been full of responsibilities, and she had grown used to doing things alone. Family and friends were far away, and though she had a few acquaintances at work, she often felt a quiet loneliness that no one seemed to notice. Yet there was a spark inside her, a hope that somewhere out there, life could surprise her in ways she had never imagined. He was standing at the corner of the street, leaning slightly against the wall of a small bookstore. His hands were tucked into the pockets of his coat, and his eyes scanned the pages of a book he had picked up from the display outside. He was not someone who sought attention, but there was a gentle presence about him that people often noticed without knowing why. He had spent his life quietly helping his family and running the little bookstore that had been passed down to him. Money had never been abundant, but he had learned the value of patience, hard work, and kindness. It was the kind of life that often went unnoticed, but it was the life he cherished. Their first encounter was nothing remarkable at first glance. She had stopped by the bookstore to pick up a book she had been wanting to read for weeks. The bell above the door rang softly as she entered, and the warm smell of old pages and coffee welcomed her. She didn't expect to see anyone there, but he was behind the counter, arranging books with a calm, careful touch. Their eyes met briefly, and something in that moment made both of them pause. It was as if the world had slowed down for just a second, and they both felt it. She wandered through the aisles, running her fingers lightly over the spines of the books. She felt a strange sense of comfort in the quiet space, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. He noticed her presence, but he didn't interrupt. He watched quietly as she picked up a book, read the back cover, and then set it down again. There was a subtle grace in her movements, a sense of thoughtfulness that intrigued him. When she finally reached the counter, she placed a small book on it and looked up. Their eyes met again, and this time there was a spark of recognition, a silent understanding that this encounter was different. He smiled gently, and she returned the smile, feeling an unexpected warmth in her chest. She paid for the book, and as she turned to leave, he spoke softly, almost hesitant. "I hope you enjoy it." She paused, surprised by the kindness in his voice. "Thank you," she replied, and for some reason, she felt the need to add, "It's been a long time since I've found a book that really interested me." He nodded, his eyes reflecting a quiet curiosity. "Sometimes the right book finds us when we least expect it," he said. There was a depth in his words, a thoughtfulness that made her heart beat a little faster. She nodded, feeling a strange connection to this man she had just met. Over the next few weeks, their encounters became more frequent, though still brief. She would stop by the bookstore on her lunch breaks, and he would offer recommendations, always speaking with a gentle sincerity that made her feel understood. They began to share small conversations about books, life, and simple joys. There was no rush, no pressure, just a natural flow of connection that grew quietly, almost imperceptibly. One afternoon, as rain began to fall softly outside, she found herself standing by the window of the bookstore, watching the droplets slide down the glass. He approached with 2 cups of coffee, placing one beside her without a word. She looked at him, surprised by the gesture. "I thought you might like something warm while you watch the rain," he said softly. There was a kindness in his eyes that made her feel safe, as if the world outside no longer mattered. She took a sip, savoring the warmth and the thoughtfulness behind it. They stood in silence, watching the rain together, feeling an unspoken bond forming between them. Days turned into weeks, and the connection between them grew stronger. They shared stories of their pasts, dreams they had yet to achieve, and fears they rarely spoke of to anyone else. She learned about his quiet struggles with running the bookstore, his love for simple moments, and the way he always tried to help those around him. He learned about her hard work, her ambitions, and the gentle vulnerability she carried beneath her strong exterior. Each revelation brought them closer, creating a sense of intimacy that neither had expected. There were moments of laughter, too, light and genuine, filling the space around them with warmth. A shared joke over a misprinted page, a playful comment about a book character, or the way they teased each other gently. These moments, small as they were, became precious memories that lingered in their minds long after they parted ways each day. Despite the growing bond, there were also moments of hesitation. She wondered if she was ready to open her heart again after years of focusing on her own life. He questioned whether he could truly offer her the stability and care she deserved, given his modest circumstances. Yet every time they were together, these doubts seemed to fade, replaced by the simple joy of being in each other's presence. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, they found themselves walking side by side after closing the bookstore. The air was crisp, and the streets were quieter than usual. They walked slowly, neither speaking at first, simply enjoying the comfort of companionship. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft and sincere. "I'm glad we met. Somehow it feels like we were meant to cross paths." She looked at him, her heart swelling with emotions she could barely put into words. "I feel the same," she replied. "It's strange, isn't it? How life brings people together when you least expect it." They shared a quiet laugh, a mix of awe and wonder at the mysterious ways life worked. In that moment, standing under the fading light of the day, there was a sense of hope and possibility, a feeling that something beautiful was beginning to unfold. As the days went by, their connection continued to deepen. They began to anticipate each other's presence, small gestures of thoughtfulness becoming more frequent and meaningful. We would leave notes in books she liked, simple messages that made her smile. She would bring him small treats or mention something she knew would interest him. Each act, no matter how small, became a thread weaving their lives together in ways neither could ignore it. It was not a story of grand gestures or dramatic events. It was quiet, gentle, and real. It was in the shared silences, the thoughtful words, and the small acts of care that their bond grew. They both knew that life was not perfect and that challenges lay ahead, but in each other they found a sense of understanding and acceptance that they had never experienced before. One particular evening, as the bookstore was about to close, she stayed a little longer, helping him organize some books on the shelves. Their hands brushed occasionally, sending small shivers of awareness through both of them. He looked at her, his eyes reflecting a mixture of admiration and affection. "I've enjoyed every moment we've shared," he said quietly. She paused, feeling the weight and sincerity of his words, and replied, "So have I. It feels like a part of my life was missing before I met you." The moment was simple, yet profound. Neither of them needed to say more. The emotions were clear in their eyes, their smiles, and the gentle silence that followed. They both knew that this was only the beginning, that their story had only just started to unfold. And as she walked home that night, the book she had purchased tucked under her arm, she felt a warmth in her heart that had nothing to do with the pages she held. It was the warmth of hope, of connection, and of a love that was quietly, gently beginning to grow. After their first few meetings, their interactions began to grow deeper and more meaningful. She would find small excuses to visit the bookstore, and he seemed to anticipate her arrival, a quiet smile appearing whenever she stepped inside. They would talk about books, art, dreams, and small things that mattered to each of them, finding in each conversation a comfort they had not felt in a long time. There was a natural flow to their dialogue, a rhythm that made each interaction feel effortless yet significant. One rainy afternoon, she lingered longer than usual, sheltering from the storm. The soft patter of rain against the windows made the room feel calm and cozy. He brought her a warm cup of tea without being asked, placing it gently on the counter. She accepted it with a grateful smile, and they watched the rain together in silence. There was no rush, no pressure, just a sense of shared peace. That simple moment became one she thought about often, a quiet memory she held close. They began to notice the small things about each other. He admired the way her eyes lit up when she talked about something she loved, and she found herself drawn to the gentle patience in his gestures. He would sometimes leave little notes tucked into books she might like, always thoughtful and unexpected. She, in turn, would bring small treats or share stories she thought would make him smile. Each act, simple as it was, deepened the growing connection between them. One evening, after closing the bookstore, they decided to take a walk through the quiet streets. The city had a gentle hush, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the soft glow of streetlights. Their conversation shifted from casual topics to more personal matters. She spoke about her childhood dreams, her fears, and the loneliness she sometimes felt despite her accomplishments. He listened with patience, never interrupting, offering empathy and understanding in his words. He shared stories of his own life, of small victories and quiet struggles, of sacrifices he had made to keep the bookstore running. He spoke of family and friends he had helped, of moments that had shaped him and the lessons he had learned. There was a sincerity in his words that resonated with her, making her feel both respected and seen. It was the first time in a long while that she felt understood on a deeper level, not just in casual conversation, but in the truths of who she was. As weeks passed, they found themselves sharing more than just stories. They would help each other with little tasks like organizing the shelves, rearranging displays, or even cooking small meals to share during quiet evenings. These moments of collaboration were filled with laughter and subtle touches, each interaction leaving a lingering warmth. They started to anticipate each other's moods, noticing when one was tired or troubled, and offering comfort without words. This quiet care created a sense of intimacy that both found hard to ignore. One afternoon, she confided in him about a particularly difficult day. She had faced unexpected challenges at work, and her patience had worn thin. She felt frustrated and alone, but sharing her feelings with him lightened the weight. He listened carefully, offering advice when asked, but mostly providing a steady presence. When she left the bookstore that day, she felt lighter, more hopeful, and deeply grateful for his attention and kindness. He, too, experienced moments of doubt and insecurity. Running the bookstore was not easy, and he often worried about the future. Yet her presence brought a sense of stability he had not known he needed. Her encouragement, her belief in him, and the simple joy she found in his company gave him strength. They became each other's support system, creating a partnership that felt natural and necessary. One day, they decided to attend a small local event together, poetry reading in a nearby cafe. It was a casual outing, but the shared experience brought them closer. They whispered observations to each other during the reading, laughed quietly at moments that amused them, and afterward walked home side by side under the soft evening sky. The city lights reflected in their eyes, mirroring the excitement and tenderness that had grown between them. Each shared experience, no matter how ordinary, seemed to carry a new significance. Their connection also brought them moments of playful teasing. He would sometimes challenge her to choose between two books, laughing when she could not decide, and she would respond with mock seriousness, pretending to be frustrated. These light-hearted exchanges became a cherished part of their routine, a reminder that love could be both profound and joyful. Their laughter often lingered in the quiet corners of the bookstore, filling the space with warmth and life. Despite the deepening bond, both carried lingering hesitations. She questioned whether opening her heart fully was wise, given her past experiences and the independence she valued. He wondered if he could provide the stability and security she deserved. Concerned about his modest means and the uncertainties of life, yet every interaction, every shared smile, and every thoughtful gesture gradually eroded these doubts. They found themselves drawn to each other not through grand gestures, but through simple, sincere acts that spoke volumes. One evening, as they sat together after closing, she noticed the way his eyes reflected the soft light of the shop, the gentle curve of his smile, and the quiet intensity in his gaze. She felt an unexpected surge of emotion, a realization that her feelings had grown stronger than she had anticipated. She was not just fond of him, she was deeply connected, emotionally invested in a way that felt both exhilarating and frightening. He, too, felt the pull of emotions he could no longer ignore. The moments they shared, the conversations, the laughter, the quiet silences they had all become threads in the fabric of his heart. He realized that he had begun to care for her in a way that went beyond friendship, a feeling that was tender, patient, and unwavering. Yet he was cautious, unsure if she felt the same intensity, and determined not to rush or pressure her, As the days continued, their bond grew stronger through shared experiences. They celebrated small victories together, such as successfully organizing an event in the bookstore or completing a personal project. They comforted each other through disappointments, offering reassurance and gentle encouragement. These moments, ordinary to an outsider, were profound in their significance, cementing a sense of trust and reliability that neither expected to find. She began to notice how naturally he had become a part of her life, how the thought of him brought a smile to her face, and how his absence created a subtle ache. He, in turn, felt a quiet joy in knowing that she thought of him, that her presence lit up the space around him, and that he could contribute to her happiness in small but meaningful ways. Their lives, once separate, were intertwining, each moment building upon the last, forming a foundation that neither wanted to disrupt. One rainy evening, as the streets glistened under the reflection of streetlights, they found themselves huddled under a shared umbrella, walking home from a quiet dinner. The rain fell softly around them, creating a cocoon of intimacy. He looked at her, his expression thoughtful, and said, "I never expected life to bring someone like you into my world." She smiled, feeling the sincerity in his words, and replied, "Neither did I, but I'm glad it did." They walked in silence, the gentle sound of rain accompanying their steps, both feeling the quiet certainty that something precious had begun by now. Their interactions were filled with a rhythm of care, understanding, and subtle affection. They had discovered each other's habits, preferences, and small quirks. He knew how she liked her tea, the way she paused before choosing a book, and the gentle gestures that brought her comfort. She knew his favorite spot in the bookstore, the way he smiled when he was proud, and the quiet determination that drove him. These shared observations became a language of intimacy, a way of expressing love without needing to say it aloud. They both felt the growth of something extraordinary, something built not on grand declarations but on consistency, empathy, and shared experiences. Each day together was a layer added to a story that neither wanted to end. They were discovering that love could be patient, quiet, and unassuming, yet profoundly transformative. One evening, as they prepared to close the bookstore, he placed a small envelope in her hands. She looked at him curiously, and he smiled softly. "Just a little something for you." Inside was a note, handwritten, expressing his appreciation for her presence, her kindness, and the joy she brought into his life. She felt a surge of warmth and gratitude, realizing that his feelings were as deep as her own. In that moment, the unspoken bond between them became undeniable. A gentle promise of care, respect, and affection, they spent the following days exploring their connection further, sharing meals, walks, and quiet evenings at the bookstore. Each shared experience, no matter how small, became a treasured memory. They celebrated each other's successes, comforted each other in disappointments, and found joy in the ordinary. It was in these moments, simple yet profound, that their love began to take root, growing slowly, steadily, and beautifully. By the end of this part of their journey, it was clear that their relationship had grown beyond friendship. They had formed a bond built on mutual respect, empathy, and genuine affection. The connection between them was no longer casual or fleeting, it was becoming something essential, a foundation for a love story that promised to endure. And as they continued to navigate the rhythms of daily life, they did so with the quiet certainty that they had found something rare and precious, a connection that would shape the course of their lives in ways they were only beginning to understand. As the seasons began to change, the relationship faced new challenges. Life, which had seemed calm and predictable when they first met, started to test them in unexpected ways. She encountered increased responsibilities at work, longer hours, and stressful situations that left her exhausted and sometimes irritable. He faced difficulties in the bookstore, from delayed shipments to financial strain that made him worry about how to keep his little business afloat. Despite these pressures, they continued to support each other, their bond growing stronger even as obstacles arose. One day she came to the bookstore looking weary and tense. Her shoulders sagged under the weight of her problems, and she barely managed to smile. He noticed immediately, his eyes filled with concern. Without asking, he offered her a cup of tea and guided her to a quiet corner of the store. They sat together in silence for a few moments, letting the warmth of the drink and the comforting atmosphere speak for itself. Then he gently asked, "Do you want to talk about it?" She hesitated but finally opened up about the difficulties at work, about how her efforts seemed unrecognized and how lonely she sometimes felt despite being surrounded by people. He listened patiently, nodding, never interrupting, allowing her to pour out her frustrations. When she finished, he offered calm reassurance. "I know it's hard, but you're not alone. I'm here, and I believe in you." His words carried a quiet power, and she felt the tension in her chest ease slightly. It was moments like these that reminded them both why they mattered to each other. Meanwhile, he faced his own trials. The bookstore, his cherished place, was experiencing low sales, and bills were piling up. He stayed late many nights, working tirelessly, but the uncertainty weighed heavily on him. She noticed his fatigue one evening and decided to help in small ways, organizing shelves, offering to take care of small errands, and even bringing meals for him. He felt grateful, humbled by her thoughtfulness, and a warmth spread through him, knowing that someone cared enough to support him without being asked. Their relationship also began to face subtle external pressures. Friends and acquaintances questioned why they spent so much time together, subtly warning of differences in their lifestyles. She occasionally felt the weight of societal expectations, wondering if their growing bond would be accepted by those around her. He sensed her inner struggle and reassured her gently, "We don't need anyone's approval. What we have is ours, and that's what matters." Her heart warmed at his words, understanding that love often meant standing together even when others did not understand. Despite these challenges, they also shared moments of joy and lightness that strengthened their connection. They found small adventures in the city, from wandering through quiet parks to discovering little cafes tucked away in side streets. They would sit for hours, talking about books, dreams, or just observing people around them. Laughter came easily, sometimes over shared mistakes, sometimes over silly observations. These moments, though simple, became cherished memories that reminded them both of the beauty in everyday life. One particularly memorable evening, they decided to attend a small art exhibit. Walking through the gallery, they admired paintings and sculptures, exchanging thoughts and opinions. She was impressed by his insights and sensitivity, and he was captivated by her curiosity and enthusiasm. They lingered on a painting that depicted a stormy sea, discussing the emotions it evoked. In that shared appreciation of art, they found another layer of connection, an unspoken understanding of each other's inner worlds. However, not all moments were light. There were disagreements, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. One day, a miscommunication about plans led to tension between them. She felt hurt thinking he had forgotten a promise, while he felt frustrated that she didn't understand the situation. For a day, silence hung between them like a heavy cloud. But by evening, they faced the issue honestly, speaking openly about their feelings. The conversation was difficult but necessary, and by its end, they understood each other more deeply. The challenge strengthened their relationship, teaching them the importance of patience, communication, and empathy. Health concerns also added stress. She experienced occasional bouts of fatigue and illness, and he worried for her well-being. He insisted she take care of herself, preparing meals, offering to handle small tasks, and providing comfort. She, in turn, encouraged him to rest when he was overworked, understanding that his health mattered just as much as her own. This mutual care became a cornerstone of their bond, creating a safe space where both could be vulnerable and nurtured. There were also moments that tested their emotional resilience. They faced minor accidents, unexpected setbacks, and the pressures of daily life, yet they faced each challenge together. Whether it was helping a friend in need, managing a last-minute problem at the bookstore, or dealing with stressful family matters, they learned to rely on each other. The trust and support they built during these trials deepened their connection, proving that love was not just about joy, but about standing together in difficult times. One day, as autumn leaves began to fall, they decided to spend an afternoon outside the city. Walking along a quiet path lined with golden trees, they talked about the future hopes, dreams, and fears. She admitted her worries about the uncertainties in her career and the pressures of life. And he shared his concerns about the bookstore and the challenges of providing stability. Yet, in acknowledging their fears, they also reaffirmed their commitment to each other. The walk ended with a quiet understanding that, whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. They also began to celebrate small victories more consciously. When a difficult project at work was successfully completed, she shared the news with him first, and he celebrated with genuine joy. When he managed to organize a special event at the bookstore despite obstacles, she was there to cheer him on. These moments, though small in the grand scheme, became symbols of their partnership, showing that success was sweeter when shared. Their relationship was also marked by moments of unexpected tenderness. On particularly difficult days, he would leave small notes for her to find. Simple messages that offered encouragement and love. She, in turn, would prepare little surprises, like favorite snacks or warm drinks. Knowing that such gestures would brighten his day, each act was a testament to the thoughtfulness and care that underpinned their bond. Reinforcing their emotional connection, despite the external and internal challenges, they also found ways to laugh at life's unpredictability. A sudden downpour during a walk became an impromptu adventure. A spilled cup of coffee led to shared jokes, and a misplaced book sparked a playful scavenger hunt in the bookstore. These moments reminded them that life, even in its challenges, could be joyful, and that humor could ease the weight of difficulties. As their bond grew stronger, so did the depth of their feelings. They began to recognize how essential each had become in the other's life. She realized that his presence brought her comfort, strength, a sense of belonging she had longed for but never expected to find. He understood that her support and care gave him courage, hope, and a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just companions. They were a source of strength, love, and understanding for each other. One quiet evening, as the bookstore closed and the streets were bathed in the soft glow of twilight, they shared a moment that felt profoundly significant. Sitting together with a cup of tea, they reflected on their journey so far, the challenges they had faced, the moments of joy they had shared, and the growing connection between them. He looked at her with an intensity that made her heart race and said softly, "I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I want you by my side through it all." She felt tears prick her eyes, touched by the sincerity and depth of his words, and replied, "I feel the same. Whatever comes, I want to face it with you." In that moment, they both understood that their love was no longer tentative or hesitant. It was real, resilient, and deeply rooted in shared experiences, trust, and care. They had faced challenges, both big and small, and had emerged stronger together. Their bond was no longer defined solely by the joy of companionship, but by the unwavering support they provided each other in times of difficulty. The following weeks continued to test them, but they approached each challenge with a newfound confidence and partnership. They learned to communicate openly, to share burdens, and to celebrate victories together. The world outside remained unpredictable, but within the space they created together, there was stability, understanding, and love. Through it all, they discovered that love was not just about grand gestures or dramatic events. It was in the quiet moments of empathy, the gentle acts of kindness, the shared laughter, and the mutual support that carried them through life's ups and downs. Each challenge they faced became an opportunity to strengthen their connection, proving that true love could endure not only joy but adversity as well. By the end of this chapter in their story, they had developed a deep emotional bond that was both tender and resilient. They had learned to navigate life's challenges together, finding strength in their partnership and comfort in each other's presence. Their love had grown from initial curiosity and gentle affection into a profound connection built on trust, understanding, and unwavering support. And as they looked ahead, they knew that the journey was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever came next, together. Time passed, and their relationship grew stronger despite the challenges of distance and life's unpredictability. They had faced tests that could have weakened their bond, but instead, each challenge had strengthened the foundation of trust, care, and understanding between them. Their love had matured into something quiet yet powerful, a presence that gave them both confidence, hope, and comfort. She had gradually settled into her new job, finding satisfaction in her achievements while still feeling the pull of her life with him. He, meanwhile, continued to nurture the bookstore, keeping it alive with dedication and love. Though miles separated them, their hearts remained connected through daily messages, phone calls, and thoughtful gestures. Every note, every conversation, every small act of kindness was a reminder that their love had not diminished, but had grown deeper and more meaningful. One day, she surprised him with an unexpected visit. He was arranging books on a shelf when he heard the familiar chime of the door. And there she stood, her eyes bright with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He could hardly believe it, and without thinking, he crossed the space between them and held her close. In that embrace, all the distance, all the challenges, and all the days apart melted away. They laughed, cried a little, and held on tightly. Knowing that some moments in life were too precious for words, during that visit they explored the city together, revisiting places that had been special to them and creating new memories. They walked hand in hand through quiet streets, sharing thoughts, dreams, and reflections on the journey they had taken together. Every laugh, every shared glance, and every touch carried the weight of the bond they had built over months of love, patience, and care. Each moment was a celebration of their journey, a reminder of the resilience of their hearts. As they spent more time together, they began to talk about the future more openly. They discussed the idea of living in the same city again, of building a home together, supporting each other's dreams without losing the essence of their connection. These conversations were filled with hope, excitement, and careful consideration. As they both wanted to ensure that their love remained strong and balanced, they realized that true love required thought, effort, and mutual commitment, and they were both willing to invest in it fully. They also took joy in the simple pleasures of life together. They cooked meals side by side, sometimes laughing at small mistakes or sharing stories from their day. They visited the bookstore together, arranging shelves, discussing books, and creating a warm, welcoming space that reflected both their personalities. They would take walks in the park, sit by rivers, or simply enjoy quiet evenings together, reading or talking. In these moments, the depth of their connection was evident, built on shared experiences, mutual care, and genuine affection. Even as they enjoyed these moments, life continued to test them. There were moments of stress, minor misunderstandings, and external pressures that required patience and understanding. Yet, they faced these challenges together, communicating openly, listening carefully, and offering comfort when needed. They discovered that love was not just about happiness and joy, but also about resilience, compromise, and unwavering support. As winter turned to spring, they found themselves sitting by a small cafe, sharing tea and watching the world around them. The city was coming alive with new energy, and the gentle warmth of the season reflected the renewal they felt in their own lives. He reached across the table, taking her hand in his, and said softly, "I've learned that love is not about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about being there every day in the little things." She smiled, feeling the depth of his words, and replied, "And I've learned the same. It's in the quiet care, the small gestures, and the trust we share that love truly lives." They spent the days that followed, continuing to strengthen their bond. They celebrated each other's successes and supported each other through challenges. Their love was a partnership, a source of encouragement and comfort that allowed them both to grow. They had learned to cherish both the extraordinary and ordinary moments, understanding that love thrived in the everyday gestures as much as in the milestones. As the months went by, they began to integrate their lives more fully. She visited him more often, and he traveled to see her whenever possible. They began to make joint decisions about their futures, discussing where they might live, how they could combine their ambitions, and how they could continue to nurture their emotional connection. Each step was taken thoughtfully, with consideration for both their needs and aspirations. Through this journey, they also touched the lives of others. Friends, family, and even strangers noticed the quiet strength of their bond. They inspired others with their patience, empathy, and resilience. Their love story became one not just of romance, but of growth, partnership, and emotional depth, showing that love could endure challenges and blossom into something enduring and beautiful. One particular day, he arranged a surprise at the bookstore. The shop was decorated simply, yet thoughtfully, with lights, books, and small notes recalling memories they had shared. She walked in, surprised and touched, and he greeted her with a tender smile. They spent the evening reminiscing, laughing, and savoring the warmth of being together. That night, they understood fully that love was about presence, care, and shared experience, and that they had cultivated a connection that would last a lifetime. Over time, their bond deepened further, encompassing not just romantic love, but also friendship, respect, and unwavering support. They knew each other's strengths and weaknesses, fears and hopes, and embraced them all with kindness. They discovered that love was not just about feeling happiness, but about creating a life together filled with meaning, trust, and mutual care. As they planned for the future, they also celebrated the present. Every day spent together became a treasured memory, every shared experience a testament to the depth of their connection. They found joy in the small moments, a shared cup of tea, a quiet walk, a thoughtful gesture, knowing that these simple acts were the foundation of their enduring love. Eventually, they decided to take the next step in their journey. They found a place to share, a home that reflected both their personalities and their shared life. Moving in together was a milestone that brought both excitement and reflection. They arranged the space together, blending their tastes, memories, and dreams. Every corner of the home carried reminders of their journey, of the love that had grown through patience, understanding, and shared effort in this shared life. They continued to nurture their connection, balancing personal growth with shared experiences. They supported each other's ambitions, celebrated achievements, and offered comfort during challenges. Their love was no longer tentative or fragile. It was steady, resilient, and deeply rooted. They understood that true love was built over time through effort, care, and unwavering commitment. As time moved forward, they reflected on their journey, the chance encounters, the shared laughter, the challenges faced together, the distance overcome, and the quiet, persistent love that had endured. They realized that every moment, whether joyous or difficult, had contributed to the depth of their connection. Their story was not defined by grand events, but by the consistent presence, care, and love they had shown each other day after day. One quiet evening, as the sun set and bathed their home in golden light, they sat together, holding hands and reflecting on how far they had come. Neither needed to speak. The presence of the other was enough. They shared a sense of gratitude, not only for the love they had found, but for the journey itself, the experiences, the challenges, and the growth they had experienced together. In that moment, they understood that love, in its truest form, was enduring, patient, and beautiful. And so their story continued. A love story that was not about perfection or grand gestures, but about quiet devotion, shared experiences, and unwavering commitment. They had discovered that the most meaningful love was built in the small moments, the thoughtful actions, and the emotional support given freely and sincerely. Their journey was a testament to the enduring power of love, a story of connection, resilience, and beauty that would remain in their hearts forever.